we have Dr. Arvind Panagariya, the Vice Chairperson of Niti Aayog, with us. Welcome to our program, sir.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here.
Yeah. You talked about the need for growth. But don't you think that growth of the kind that you want or you have plans for will mean a decline in the number of jobs available? Will there not be a clash between growth and jobs?
No, not at all, actually. The whole reason to want growth is to create jobs. So certainly, if growth is going to be working against the creation of jobs, no, certainly I don't want that kind of growth. I talked about faster growth in industries that provide a lot more employment, like clothing industry, where a lot of workers are used per unit of capital investment. Likewise, in footwear industry, where a lot of workers are employed. A lot of assembly industries, electronic products industry. So these are the industries which really have not grown rapidly in India. In India, in fact, precisely in the past, industries that have done very well are the ones that don't create too many jobs. So we have auto parts and automobile industry, we have software industry, we have the engineering goods industry, petroleum refining. These industries use a lot of capital, but for the amount of capital that they use, they don't create too many jobs. Yeah. So what I am arguing is that precisely we need to have industries that employ more workers, and particularly the industries that create jobs for low-skilled workers grow more rapidly.
Thank you, sir. There is a distinct tendency to invite more and more people to come out of agriculture and join industry and services sector. You mentioned a figure of around 50% of the workforce is now engaged in agriculture. Here in Odisha, the percentage is even higher because of the lack of industry and everything. It's around 70% of the population which is engaged in agriculture or allied activities. So how exactly to draw them away from agriculture into industry and services sector? How do we plan, especially in a state like Odisha, which is very low level of literacy and awareness?
No, very good question. And so it is really not up to us to actually, draw the farmers out of their current jobs. I think up to us is to do things that will create jobs in industry and services. And then it's up to the decisions to be made by the farmers themselves, whether they want to stay in farming or they want to take up these new jobs. So in the end, right now there are so many workers, so many people in farming in Orissa and India in general, because we have not been successful in creating good jobs for the workers in industry and services, for the low-skilled workers. You see, for the highly skilled, you got telecom industry, you got software industry, you got automobile industry, which are doing well. So for the skilled, highly skilled, I think jobs are there, have been created, but it is really at the low skill level. And this is where I was talking about, our industrialization has to also happen in these industries where a lot of assembly kind of jobs are created. So that is the argumentation.
On the one hand, we are having policies which are aimed at drawing the people away from the workforce, away from agriculture and into industry and services. And at the same time, we are also bringing in new technology to make agriculture productive. Don't you think there is a contradiction between the two?
No. Remember, okay, so this is where we get to the other side of the story. Remember that lots of workers are in agriculture, and the process of migration from agriculture into industry and services is going to be a slow one. So in the meantime, how do we bring relief to a lot of workers? They will still remain in agriculture for quite a while, And so we have to raise productivity. So faster way to bring prosperity and relief to those employed in agriculture is precisely through higher productivity in agriculture, higher yields for the farmers, better facilities for irrigation, all the good things that we can do to make agriculture grow faster on a more sustained basis, reduce the fluctuations that happen in annual outputs, etc. So on the one hand, it is a complex process. On the one hand, we need to bring prosperity faster within agriculture to those that are in agriculture. On the other hand, we also need to create jobs in industry and services where farmers who are working completely on the margins, right? There are a lot of workers, a lot of farmers in India with very small farms, half hectare, 1 hectare. There are also a lot of landless workers in farming activity. For them, we do need good jobs. Many of them today actually say in the surveys that if they could get a good job in a city, then they would like to move out of agriculture because agriculture is simply not providing enough income. So for those who are very marginal, are not able to make ends meet, we do need to create good jobs. But at the same time, there's still a lot of inframarginal other farmers who are able to make income, but they're not prosperous nevertheless. For them, we need to raise the productivity so that they can also share immediately in the rising prosperity.
You also talked about port-led growth and the importance of SEZs, ports. So where exactly does Odisha figure in this list? Because Odisha has a long coast, as you must be knowing, about 480 kilometers. How can Odisha replicate the model that has been followed by Gujarat and have a port-led growth here?
Right. So we, India overall has a very large coastline, and Odisha likewise has therefore also a very large coastline and good ports and all. India in general, I think, as I mentioned in my speech today, Gujarat, certainly under current Prime Minister, who was then the Chief Minister of Gujarat, saw a lot of port-led growth and port-led development. And so that has really inspired the Prime Minister actually to think in terms of port-led growth around India, and I think he probably is also, having visited Shenzhen and all the other countries, Korea, South Korea, China, etc., is influenced that all these countries grew rapidly through better exploitation of the opportunities offered by long coastlines, and so he has this Sagarmala project under which he wants port-led development initiated in the coastal cities, coastal states of India, and clearly Odisha there with its long coastline and good ports is very much there. Now, this requires, of course, developing a lot of infrastructure along the coastline, also a lot of improvement in the ports, both capacity as well as administration, so that ships can turn around fast, because in the export markets, in Singapore and Hong Kong, ships turn around in about 8 to 12 hours. In our country, still, it takes 2 to 2.5 days on average. So we need to work on that. We also need to have a good ecosystem for the businesses in these coastal zones. If we are going to create these coastal zones, good flexible labor laws, flexible land laws. And so a lot of work needs to be done, both in terms of the infrastructure policy framework and the development of ports themselves.
One of the things that you emphasized in your address just a while ago was connectivity. And in this, obviously, railway connectivity is a very important component of this connectivity issue. And Odisha has always been very sorry and sad that despite the fact that railways earn about, on an average, about 14,000 crores of revenue out of railway lines passing through Odisha, the allocation for Odisha has always been very frugal, very small. Do you think there is a need to actually relate the allocation to the actual revenue earned out of that state?
I think this is a call for the railway minister to take because, but in general, I think, we do need to improve connectivity in a big way. The current railway minister actually is very keen. He's been doing partnerships with the states where states and central government are together investing in railways. I have chaired a committee which has just given a pass to the high-speed railway line between Ahmedabad and Mumbai, and hopefully we'll have more high-speed trains also, and hopefully one will come through Bhubaneswar. But that's a longer-term kind of scenario. But we need to do everything to achieve better connectivity, and railways often tend to be the cheapest, least cost means of both transporting people and freight. So that's something we need to exploit.
But that Eastern India needs to come up at par with the Western and the Southern part as far as development is concerned for the overall economic growth of the country. So do you think there are more resources, the government of India should be coming out with more resources to actually pull states like Odisha from the kind of situation they are in now to a situation where they can now compete with the rest of the developed states?
No. This is clearly the mandate, and the Prime Minister has often talked about bringing Eastern India up. And he has a very strong commitment to bringing, for example, Green Revolution to Eastern India. As he often says that, we talk of Green Revolution in India, but wait a minute, that Green Revolution was mostly in North and West India. Is not in whole of India, so he really wants to bring it to the East India as well, and he certainly has a very strong commitment to stimulating and achieving greater development in East India. So to that there is no dispute. As far as handholding is concerned, of course, that's partly by the center of the states. That's the mandate of my own institution, the Niti Aayog also. It is also the case that I wanted to meet the Chief Minister and discuss a few developmental issues with him. So now, as you can see, Planning Commission, usually the Chief Ministers came to the Planning Commission. The Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission rarely went to the states. But we are doing exactly differently now. We are no longer allocating money to the states, but instead we are trying to do some hand-holding. And so we also try to represent the interests of the states to the central ministries. So often we are the champions of the cause of the states at the center. And we also then offer any help, technical kind of assistance or otherwise that the states might want. So we try to do that.
Brings me to my next questions. For about more than 6 decades, we have had a planning commission, which has now been replaced by Niti Aayog, and you are obviously the first person to be effectively heading, though the Prime Minister is the head. You are basically the points person of the Niti Aayog. So what exactly has changed from the Planning Commission to the Niti Aayog?
So, as I just mentioned, it is now a very different institution, and tomorrow, meaning in the next year or two, it will look even more different. The Planning Commission, for example, did 5-year plans, and they try to plan both the public sector and the private sector economies through the 5-year plans. I think it's less likely now. The final decision has not been made. Prime Minister will have to make that decision whether there will be a 13th plan or not, but very likely not so. Instead now, the mandate of our institution is more to be have an equal relationship with the states, be the champion of the interests of the states with respect to the central ministries. So we are also then, so that's one role. But the other role, of course, also is that we try to inform states about possible policy changes that they can make. One big project that we are trying to currently do is to reform the land leasing laws in the states. As you know, a lot of the laws states make. We, in terms of our constitution, we have the union list, the state list, and the concurrent list. And in both state and concurrent list, states can also do the legislation. So on land leasing, we are trying to encourage states through a model land leasing act to change the land leasing laws. They'll allow farmers to lease in or lease out their land more flexibly and without any fear that the tenant might take away their land. Right? So that's one of the initiatives. Similarly, in other policy areas, digitization of land records, which is very, very important subject, and that's also a state subject. We are trying to help advance that.
So would you say the initiatives taken by the Niti Aayog have started giving results, or will there be some time before they start?
Good question. Actually, no. In fact, as a part of this, we're talking. This is called the cooperative federalism, cooperative comparative federalism. So the Prime Minister himself actually initiated this when our first governing council meeting took place on 8th February 2015. So. A lot of the chief ministers at that meeting advised him that, look, this body, the governing council is too large. So there are 29 chief ministers, then lieutenant governors of the states, central ministers. So it's a very large body. So they suggested, why don't you form some subgroups of chief ministers on specific issues who can then discuss and then also, consult with their other colleagues in other chief ministers and all, and then advise you. So as a result of that, right on that day, the Prime Minister made the decision that he would like to appoint 3 such chief subgroups of the chief ministers. So he appointed one on the centrally sponsored schemes, one on skill development, and one on Swachh Bharat. And now, all 3 subgroups have actually come up with reports. They have submitted them. It was very hard work for our institution because we had to provide all the logistical support. We had also to provide actually, a lot of the actual writing of the report, but although decisions were made by the chief ministers, but also in forging and evolving a consensus across states. There was really a navigation job that the Niti Aayog had to do. So it was all done. We have the 3 reports in front of us. This very important one, centrally sponsored schemes being implemented now. On Swachh Bharat, one of the key recommendations of the chief ministers was a 0.5% cess on services, which has been accepted by the government. The cess is in place. So this is a good example of what we have already done. We have also about almost close to finishing off working on the national energy policy. We were also, the Prime Minister on the first governing council meeting had advised appointing 2 task forces, one on poverty, one on agriculture, which was to be under my chairmanship, and parallel task forces were to be formed in the states. All that process has also worked its way through. There is a paper that we have now posted on our website on agriculture, which is based on the discussions carried out by the task force on agriculture. We are about to also do the same in the case of poverty elimination. So a lot of work has actually already been done.
One last question, sir. How important is GST to the overall economic policy of the government of India? And given the kind of opposition that it has faced in Parliament, do you really see it getting passed in the next Parliament?
So it is a very important initiative. I think, all the pieces that need to be in place are more or less there. We are set to do it. And this is really a game-changing kind of reform, which once it takes place, I think will also pave the way for reforms in direct taxes. Right, and so we need it because our tax system really is full of all kinds of exemptions, which then also results in high tax rates wherever taxes are actually charged. That distributes the tax burden very unevenly. So we need to clean up the exemptions, which is what GST will do for the excise and these indirect taxes. So I was coming to that. So I think there are now very good chances. Both Finance Minister and Prime Minister seem quite optimistic that, when the budget session happens in April, there will also have been some shift in the votes in the Rajya Sabha now because of the changed compositions of the assemblies in the states. So both the Finance Minister and Prime Minister are very optimistic that we would actually see. And I think, thinking also has been evolving. The government has given concessions on some of the demands that the Congress had made. So we are converging in terms of, the differences across parties, as also there is likely to be this compositional change. So both of which should make it easier by April to pass the GST reform.
Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Panagariya. That was Dr. Arvind Panagariya, Vice Chairperson of Niti Aayog, talking to us on overall economic policy and the kind of job that Niti Aayog has been doing in driving economic policy in the country.